My sister wiped out my house down payment to buy herself a luxury car. She needs it more than you, my parents said. You can always save up again. I just smiled and called the bank. What they didn't know, that account was directly linked to there. This isn't just a story about losing $49,000. It's about a betrayal so deep it shattered my perception of family, forcing me to reclaim my life from the people who were supposed to protect me. Can you imagine your own parents telling you your life savings, built over 5 years of grueling sacrifice, meant less than your sister's fleeting desire for a new car? Because that's exactly what happened to me. Hi, I'm Abigail, 28 years old, and until last month, I had nearly $50,000 saved for my dream home. 5 years. That's 5 years of working overtime, packing sad brown bag lunches, and saying no to every single vacation. All of it gone in a single day. My sister, Amanda, just waltzed into a bank, emptied my account, and drove off in a brand new Mercedes. The absolute worst part? When I ran to my parents, my heart absolutely breaking, they looked me straight in the eye and said, "You can just save again. Amanda needs this more than you." I was stunned. Silent. Growing up in suburban Boston, it was always painfully clear who the star of our family was. Amanda, my younger sister by 2 years, had that effortless beauty, the kind that made heads turn even when she was a teenager. I was the awkward one, braces, glasses, constantly struggling to fit in. Meanwhile, Amanda was the cheerleading captain, a trail of admirers following her through the hallways. Our parents, Robert and Eleanor Thompson, never even tried to hide their favoritism. When Amanda made the honor roll, there were celebrations, gifts, lavish dinners. When I brought home straight A's, I'd get a quick pat on the back and a dismissive, "That's what we expect from you, Abby." My father, a high school football coach, just clicked with Amanda's athletic ability and outgoing personality. My mother, a real estate agent, loved parading her beautiful daughter at open houses, swearing it helped sell homes faster. I learned early on that the only way to get any attention in our house was to be supremely responsible. So that's who I became. While Amanda went to parties and dated the popular boys, I buried myself in studies, joined academic clubs, and meticulously planned my future. I wasn't doing it for praise anymore. I knew that wasn't coming. I was doing it because I realized no one was going to look out for me except myself. College was when the financial disparity became impossible to ignore. My parents paid Amanda's full tuition at a private university, where she changed majors 3 times before finally settling on communications. Me? I attended the state university on a partial scholarship, working 20 hours a week at the campus bookstore, taking out loans to cover the rest. When I asked my parents why they wouldn't help me the same way, my father just said, "You're smart, Abby. You'll be fine no matter what. Amanda needs the extra support." Those words became the theme of my entire life. Amanda needs it more. I graduated with an accounting degree and $30,000 in student debt. Amanda graduated with no debt, no job prospects, and moved straight back home where my parents had converted the basement into what they generously called her starter apartment. I took a job at a mid-sized accounting firm in Boston, rented a tiny studio apartment with a roommate, and created a strict budget that would allow me to pay off my loans in 3 years instead of 10. While I was eating ramen and tracking every single penny, Amanda was launching her failed business venture, a social media consultancy that consisted mainly of my parents paying her to post pictures on Instagram. When that inevitably collapsed, they bought her a business wardrobe worth thousands and paid for her to take a luxury vacation to recharge. This pattern continued for years. Amanda would run up credit card debt. My parents would bail her out. She needed a new car because hers was embarrassing. For client meetings, they co-signed the loan. Meanwhile, I was getting promoted at work, building my credit score, and finally paying off my student loans. 5 years ago, after a significant promotion, I opened a special savings account dedicated solely to my future home. Every month, a portion of my paycheck automatically transferred into it. I tracked interest rates, researched first-time homebuyer programs, and calculated exactly how long it would take me to afford a down payment on a modest house in a decent neighborhood. My grandmother, Margaret, was my only ally in the family. Unlike my parents, she actually recognized and appreciated my responsibility. "Your sister may get all the attention now," she told me over tea one Sunday, "but you're building something that will last." Financial independence is the greatest gift you can give yourself. She had grown up during the Depression and truly understood the value of self-reliance. Her words became my mantra whenever I felt tempted to spend money on something frivolous. Last year, things seemed to be improving with my family. Amanda had actually held a job at a marketing firm for over a year, her longest employment ever. My parents even started acknowledging my career achievements, hosting a small dinner when I was promoted to senior financial advisor. For the first time in years, I felt like we were becoming a normal family, one where all members were valued equally. That newfound comfort, that fragile sense of normalcy, led me to let my guard down. I started sharing more about my life, including my excitement about finally reaching my savings goal for a house. During a family dinner 3 months ago, I mentioned I was close to having enough for a down payment and had started looking at listings. That's wonderful, honey, my mother said, seemingly genuinely happy for me. My father raised his glass in a toast, and even Amanda asked to see some of the houses I was considering. I showed them pictures of a modest 3-bedroom home in a quiet, neighborly area, explaining my plans to renovate the outdated kitchen over time. They all seemed supportive, offering suggestions and expressing excitement. For once, I felt truly seen and appreciated by my family. That moment of connection made what happened next all the more devastating. Last month, I scheduled a meeting with Jessica, a realtor recommended by a colleague. After years of dreaming, researching, and saving, I was finally ready to make an offer on a house I'd fallen in love with, a charming colonial with a small yard and a bay window, perfect for reading. The night before our meeting, I decided to check my special savings account one last time, wanting to confirm the exact amount I had available. I remember every detail of that moment. I was sitting at my kitchen table, laptop open, a cup of chamomile tea steaming beside me. The room was quiet, except for the gentle hum of my refrigerator. I logged into my bank account, navigated to my savings section, and stared at the screen in disbelief. Where there should have been $49,872.33, the sum of 5 years of discipline and saving, there was $1,742. My first thought was that I had somehow logged into the wrong account. I logged out and back in. Same number. I checked my other accounts, thinking perhaps I had transferred the money and forgotten. Nothing. My heart began racing, and my hands shook as I dialed the bank's customer service number. I need to report unauthorized activity on my account, I told the representative, my voice trembling. Almost $50,000 is missing. The representative put me on hold to investigate. Those minutes felt like hours as I paced my small apartment, panic rising in my throat. When she returned, her response only confused me more. Miss Thompson, I'm showing a withdrawal of $49,800 made 2 days ago at our downtown branch. It appears to be an authorized transaction. The withdrawal slip has your signature on it. That's impossible, I insisted. I haven't been to that branch in months, and I certainly didn't withdraw that money. After answering security questions and confirming my identity, the representative agreed to escalate the issue to the fraud department. They promised to review the security footage and get back to me within 48 hours. In the meantime, I canceled my meeting with Jessica and took the day off work, too distressed to focus. That afternoon, the fraud department called back with news that turned my confusion into shock. Miss Thompson, we've reviewed the footage from the branch. The person who made the withdrawal appears to be a young woman who presented your ID and knew all your information, including your mother's maiden name and the verbal password on your account. A sickening realization washed over me. There was only one person who could match that description and might have access to my personal information. Can you tell me where the money went? I asked, already suspecting the answer. The funds were withdrawn as a cashier's check made payable to Luxury Motors of Boston. I hung up, heart pounding, and immediately called my sister. No answer. I texted her, need to talk to you ASAP. It's an emergency. No response. I was about to drive to her apartment when I heard the distinctive roar of a luxury car engine outside my building. Looking out the window, I saw Amanda parking a brand new white Mercedes convertible in the visitor spot. She stepped out, sunglasses perched on her head, looking like she'd just won the lottery. When I confronted her in the parking lot, the words out of her mouth weren't an apology or an explanation. Instead, she smiled broadly and said, "Isn't she gorgeous?" I got such a good deal. "Amanda," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Did you take money from my savings account?" She shrugged, running her hand along the sleek hood of the car. "I needed it for the down payment. They wouldn't approve me for the full loan amount. That was my house fund." I yelled, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. 5 years of saving. How could you do this? Amanda's casual attitude in the face of my distress was perhaps more shocking than the theft itself. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Abby. You can always save more money. You're good at that stuff. I needed this car now for my image. How am I supposed to impress clients in my old Honda?" "You stole from me," I said, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. "You committed fraud. That's a crime." She rolled her eyes. "It's not stealing when it's family. Besides, Mom and Dad said it was okay." Those words hit me like a physical blow. "Mom and Dad knew about this?" "Of course they did," she continued, oblivious to my agony. "I needed their help to find your bank information. They agreed you wouldn't mind. You've always been the financially responsible one, right? That's your whole thing." I stood there in the parking lot, staring at my sister lounging against a car purchased with my dreams, feeling like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. I drove to my parents' house in a daze, tears streaming down my face as I navigated the familiar route through the suburbs. The same streets I'd grown up on now seemed alien and hostile. How could they have done this? How could they have helped Amanda steal what they knew represented years of my hard work and sacrifice? Our family home, a comfortable 2-story colonial with blue shutters and a wraparound porch, had always been a place of mixed emotions for me. Today, as I pulled into the driveway behind my father's Cadillac, it felt like I was walking into an ambush. It was Sunday afternoon, and as expected, both my parents were home. Mom was in the kitchen, preparing their traditional Sunday roast, and Dad was watching golf in the living room. The familiar smell of pot roast and rosemary potatoes filled the air, a scent that had once meant comfort, but now made my stomach churn. "Abby, what a nice surprise," my mother said as I walked in, wiping her hands on her apron. Her smile faded when she saw my tear-stained face. "Honey, what's wrong?" My father muted the TV and joined us in the kitchen. "You look upset, kiddo. What happened?" Their concern seemed so genuine that for a fleeting moment, I wondered if Amanda had lied about their involvement. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe this was all her doing, and they would be as outraged as I was. "Amanda emptied my house savings account," I said, watching their faces carefully. "She took nearly $50,000 and bought herself a Mercedes." The brief exchange of glances between them confirmed everything. They knew. What's more, the complete lack of shock or outrage told me Amanda had been telling the truth. They had helped her. "Now, Abby," my father began, his voice taking on the placating tone he used when he thought I was overreacting. "I know you're upset, but try to see the bigger picture here." "The bigger picture?" I repeated, incredulous. "Dad, she stole from me. She committed fraud. She took 5 years of my savings." My mother stepped forward, placing a hand on my arm that I immediately shook off. "Sweetie, Amanda is going through a really rough time right now. After her breakup with Tyler, she's been struggling with her self-esteem. This car is giving her the confidence boost she desperately needs." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So, her confidence is worth more than my dreams? My hard work? My trust? "It's not like that," my father said, frowning. "Amanda needs this car for her career. How is she supposed to meet with high-profile clients driving that old Honda? This is an investment in her future." "And what about my future?" I asked, my voice breaking. "I was going to buy a house. I had an appointment with a realtor. I've been saving for 5 years." "You've always been good with money, Abby," my mother said, as if that justified everything. "You can save it again. You have a stable job, no debt. Amanda is still finding her way." Finding her way? She's 26 years old. When does she become responsible for herself? My father's expression hardened. "That's enough, Abigail. Your sister needed help, and we, as a family, stepped up. You've always been the successful one. Would it kill you to make a sacrifice for once?" The injustice of his words struck me speechless. Make a sacrifice? What did he think I'd been doing my entire life? The front door opened and Amanda walked in, car keys dangling from her fingers. She'd changed into designer sunglasses and a new outfit that probably cost more than a month of my mortgage savings. "Oh, good. You're all here," she said, seemingly oblivious to the tension. "Mom, can you help me set up the insurance for the new car? The dealer said I need to do it by tomorrow." I stared at her in disbelief. "Are you serious right now? You steal my money and then waltz in here asking for more help." Amanda rolled her eyes. "God, are you still upset about that? I told you, you can save it again. You had no right to take my money," I shouted, finally losing my composure. "Abigail, lower your voice," my mother scolded. "The neighbors will hear you." "I don't care who hears me. I want my money back, Amanda. All of it." "No." Amanda laughed. "Well, that's not going to happen. The car is already registered in my name. Besides, Mom and Dad agree I needed it more than you need some house." I turned to my parents, hoping against hope that they would correct her, that they would take my side just this once. Instead, my father put his arm around Amanda's shoulders protectively. "Abby, you're being selfish," he said. "Family helps family. Your sister needed this, and you have the means to recover. Why are you making such a big deal out of it?" "Because it's theft." I cried. "Because it's my money that I worked for. Because you've always favored her, and this time you've gone too far." "That's ridiculous," my mother snapped. "We've never played favorites." Amanda smirked. "Maybe they just love me more because I'm not obsessed with money and material things like you are, Abby." The irony of her statement, as she stood there draped in expensive clothes, keys to a luxury car in hand, all purchased with my stolen money, was apparently lost on everyone but me. "I can't believe this is happening," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "I can't believe my own family would do this to me." "Oh, stop being so dramatic," Amanda said. "It's just money." "Just money?" "Just 5 years of sacrifices. Just the dream I'd been working towards since college. Just my trust and faith in my family, shattered beyond repair." I looked at the three of them standing together, a united front against me, as it had always been, and realized there was nothing more to say. I turned and walked out the door, my mother calling after me that I was overreacting, that I should come back and discuss this rationally. I got into my car and drove away from my childhood home, tears blurring my vision so badly that I had to pull over a few blocks away. Sitting there in the quiet of my car, I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. As I sat in my car, struggling to breathe through my tears, a memory surfaced of my grandmother, Margaret, sitting with me on her porch swing when I was 16. I had just been passed over for a leadership position in the school newspaper in favor of Amanda, despite having more experience and better qualifications. "Family is important," Abigail, Grandma had said, her weathered hand patting mine. "But there comes a point when you have to establish boundaries, even with those you love. Some people will take and take until there's nothing left of you if you let them. At 16, I hadn't fully understood what she meant. Now, at 28, watching my life savings disappear into my sister's new car with my parents' blessing, I finally did. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was a pattern that had been playing out my entire life. When I was 18, my parents had promised to help with my college tuition. 2 months before my semester, they apologetically explained that they'd use the money to fund Amanda's European backpacking trip because she needed to find herself before college. I took out additional loans. When our grandmother passed away 3 years ago, she left her vintage jewelry collection to be divided equally between Amanda and me. Somehow, by the time the division happened, Amanda had claimed all the valuable pieces, leaving me with costume jewelry and sentimental but worthless items. My parents had overseen the division and saw nothing wrong with it. Every time, I had swallowed my hurt and anger. Every time, I had told myself that family was more important than material things. Every time, I had forgiven without receiving an apology. But this time was different. This time, they had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I drove to Prospect Hill Park, my favorite spot overlooking the Boston skyline. The view had always calmed me, helped me think clearly. Today, as I watched the sun setting behind the city buildings, I felt a resolve hardening within me. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend, Diana. Are you okay? You missed our coffee date. With everything that had happened, I'd completely forgotten our standing Sunday evening meetup. I called her immediately. Abby, what's going on? Diana asked, concern evident in her voice. It's not like you to no-show. Can you meet me at Carlton's coffee shop? I asked, my voice still shaky. I need to talk to someone who isn't my family right now. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Diana in a quiet corner of the coffee shop, pouring out the whole story. Diana's expression shifted from shock to outrage as I explained what Amanda and my parents had done. Abby, that's not just wrong, that's illegal, she said when I finished. Your sister committed fraud. She stole your identity and took your money. My parents helped her, I said, still unable to fully process that reality. Diana reached across the table and gripped my hand. Listen to me. This isn't normal family behavior. This is toxic and abusive. You need to report this to the bank. It's fraud, and probably to the police. They're my family, I said weakly, the default response I'd been programmed with my whole life. Family doesn't steal $50,000 from you, Diana said firmly. And this isn't the first time Amanda has done something like this. I looked up surprised. What do you mean? Diana hesitated, then sighed. I didn't tell you this before because I didn't want to come between you and your sister. But 2 years ago, Amanda asked me for a loan of $5,000 for what she called a business opportunity. When I said no, she somehow got my credit card information and charged almost $3,000 before I caught it. I reported it as fraud and got my money back. But when I confronted her, she acted like it was no big deal. I stared at Diana in shock. Why didn't you tell me? She swore she'd pay me back, said she was desperate, and begged me not to tell you. I was angry, but I let it go after the credit card company refunded my money. I should have told you. I'm sorry. The revelation that Amanda had stolen from others outside the family was the final piece that broke the dam of emotions I'd been holding back. I put my head in my hands and sobbed right there in the coffee shop. Years of suppressed hurt and anger pouring out of me. Diana moved to sit beside me, her arm around my shoulders. It's okay to be angry, Abby. It's okay to stand up for yourself, even against your family. Especially against your family when they're hurting you like this. As my tears subsided, a strange calm settled over me. Diana was right. This wasn't about the money. Not really. It was about respect, boundaries, and self-worth. All things my family had trampled on throughout my life. I don't think I can ever save that much money again, I said quietly. At least not for years. That house I wanted, it's gone. Maybe not, Diana said, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. Didn't you tell me once that you set up some special security features on that savings account? A memory flickered. When I'd opened the dedicated house savings account, I'd been worried about online security. The bank manager had suggested adding an extra layer of protection, a unique verification code that would be required for large withdrawals, different from my usual banking password. The verification code, I whispered, hope stirring faintly. Amanda couldn't have known that. She must have somehow bypassed it or lied about having it, Diana finished. Abby, I think you need to talk to that bank manager again and maybe a lawyer. For the first time since discovering the theft, I felt a glimmer of possibility. If Amanda had circumvented the security measures, that strengthened the case that this was deliberate fraud, not a family misunderstanding as they were trying to frame it. I'll go to the bank first thing tomorrow, I decided, straightening my shoulders. Diana nodded approvingly. And I'm coming with you. It's time you had someone in your corner for a change. As we left the coffee shop, I realized I was standing at a crossroads. Down one path lay the familiar pattern of forgiveness without accountability, of sacrifice without recognition. Down the other lay the unknown territory of standing up for myself, of potentially burning bridges with my family. Grandmother Margaret's words echoed in my mind. Financial independence is the greatest gift you can give yourself. She had been wrong about one thing, though. The greatest gift wasn't financial independence. It was the courage to value yourself enough to demand respect. I chose that path. Monday morning, I walked into First National Bank with Diana beside me for moral support. I had called ahead and scheduled a meeting with William Parker, the bank manager who had helped me set up my house savings account 5 years ago. William remembered me, which wasn't surprising given how often I'd come in during the early days of my savings journey, excitedly making deposits and discussing interest rates. His friendly smile faded as I explained what had happened. Miss Thompson, I'm deeply concerned about what you're describing, he said, reviewing the transaction records on his computer. This account indeed had our enhanced verification protection, which requires a separate 6-digit code for withdrawals over $10,000. This code is different from your regular banking credentials. My sister couldn't have known that code, I confirmed. I never shared it with anyone. William's expression grew serious. According to our records, the withdrawal was processed with a verification code, but he paused, typing something. The system shows it was manually overwritten by the teller after multiple failed attempts. What does that mean? Diana asked. It means, William said carefully, that whoever made this withdrawal likely claimed to be you, failed to provide the correct verification code, but somehow convinced the teller to process the transaction anyway. Is there video of this? I asked. William nodded. Yes, all transactions are recorded. Our fraud department should have reviewed this already, given the size of the withdrawal. He made a call to the security office, speaking in low tones. After hanging up, he turned back to me. They're sending over the footage now, Miss Thompson. Given what you've told me, I strongly recommend you speak with our legal department. This appears to be a clear case of identity theft and fraud. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in a conference room, watching security footage of my sister at the teller window. Her hair styled like mine, wearing glasses similar to ones I owned. She was clearly pretending to be me, presenting my ID and confidently chatting with the teller. When it came time to provide the verification code, the footage showed her becoming flustered, checking her phone repeatedly, then leaning in to speak quietly to the teller. She's claiming she forgot the code, William explained. Based on the teller's report, your sister said she needed the money urgently for a medical emergency and provided additional identifying information to prove she was you. What kind of identifying information? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Your social security number, mother's maiden name, and the address of your apartment. All information my parents would have had access to. The realization made me feel physically ill. What are my options? I asked William. You have several, he replied. We can freeze any further activity on all your accounts immediately. You can file a formal fraud claim with a bank, which would trigger an investigation, and I strongly recommend this. You should report this to the police as identity theft. Diana squeezed my hand supportively. You should do all three. If I file a police report, I said slowly, my sister could face criminal charges. William nodded solemnly. Yes, identity theft and bank fraud are serious crimes. But without a police report, recovering your money becomes much more difficult, especially since the funds have already been used to purchase a vehicle. I took a deep breath. I'll do it. All of it. After freezing my accounts and filing the initial paperwork with the bank, Diana drove me to meet with Michael Stein, a lawyer who specialized in financial fraud cases. His office was small but professional, lined with law books and framed diplomas. Based on what you've told me and the bank's initial findings, you have a very strong case, Michael said after hearing my story. The bank has a responsibility to ensure proper verification protocols are followed. The fact that the teller overrode the security measures is problematic for them. What about my sister? I asked. And my parents? Michael leaned forward, his expression serious. Your sister committed identity theft and bank fraud, both federal offenses. Your parents, if they knowingly assisted her, could be considered accessories. However, proving their involvement might be difficult without explicit evidence. He outlined a plan, send a formal demand letter to Amanda, requiring the return of the full amount within 7 days. If she failed to comply, we would proceed with both civil action to recover the funds and work with the district attorney on potential criminal charges. Before we go further, Michael said, I want to make sure you understand what this means. Legal action against family members can have permanent consequences for those relationships. Are you prepared for that? I thought about my parents' dismissal of my feelings, about Amanda's casual theft of my dreams, about a lifetime of being the responsible one who was expected to sacrifice without complaint. Yes, I said firmly. I'm prepared. Before taking the irreversible step of filing a police report, I decided to give Amanda one last chance. I sent her a text message that evening. Amanda, I've spoken with the bank and a lawyer. What you did constitutes identity theft and fraud. I'm giving you one opportunity to return the full amount you took from my account. If you don't, I will be filing a police report tomorrow and pressing charges. This is not a threat. It's the consequence of your actions. Her response came minutes later, LOL. Are you serious? You would send your own sister to jail over money? Good luck with that. Mom and Dad would never let you. Her dismissive attitude erased any lingering doubts I had. The next morning, I sat in a police station with Officer Thompson, a patient woman who carefully documented every detail of my case. Unfortunately, we see cases like this more often than you'd think, she told me. Family financial fraud is surprisingly common and often goes unreported because victims feel guilty about getting family in trouble. I've given her a chance to make this right, I said. That's more than most would do, Officer Thompson assured me. We'll investigate this thoroughly. With the police report filed, Michael sent the formal demand letter to Amanda via certified mail, with copies to my parents' address as well. I also called the dealership where Amanda had purchased the Mercedes, explaining the situation to their finance manager. The vehicle was purchased with fraudulently obtained funds, Michael explained during the three-way call. Your dealership could potentially be implicated if you don't cooperate with recovering those funds. The finance manager, understandably concerned, promised to review the situation with their legal team and get back to us promptly. Throughout this process, my phone exploded with messages and calls from my family. Amanda vacillated between mocking disbelief that I would go this far over money and tearful pleas about how I was destroying her life. My mother left voicemails alternating between guilt trips and threats. My father's messages were simply angry, calling me selfish and vindictive. I stopped reading them after a while, handing my phone to Diana, who filtered out anything important from the barrage of family manipulation. The emotional toll was immense. Despite knowing I was doing the right thing, years of conditioning made me question myself. Was I overreacting? Was I being selfish? Should I just let it go to keep the peace? Diana and my coworker Sarah became my support system, reminding me of the reality when family gaslighting made me doubt myself. Sarah, who had experienced similar family dynamics, introduced me to a therapist specializing in family trauma. What your family did wasn't just financially abusive, Abigail, Dr. Winters told me during our session. It was the culmination of a lifetime of emotional manipulation and scapegoating. Your reaction isn't just about the money. It's about finally saying enough to the entire dynamic. 3 days after the certified letters were delivered, the dealership called. After consulting with their legal department, they had decided to cooperate fully with the investigation. They provided documentation showing that Amanda had used a cashier's check from my bank to make a down payment of $49,800 on the Mercedes, financing the remainder. That same day, the bank's fraud investigation concluded that proper verification protocols had not been followed. They acknowledged liability and agreed to restore the full amount to a new account while the case against Amanda proceeded. It felt like a ray of light in a very dark tunnel. The bank's decision to restore my funds was a major victory, but it was just the beginning of the fallout from my decision to stand up for myself. Amanda was served with legal papers at her workplace, a detail I hadn't specified, but that the process server had deemed appropriate given her avoidance of her home address. She called me screaming the moment the server left, her voice so shrill I had to hold the phone away from my ear. How could you humiliate me like this in front of my entire office? Everyone saw. I could get fired. You committed fraud, Amanda, I replied calmly. These are the consequences of your actions. It's family money, she yelled. You're being ridiculous. No, it was my money that I earned and saved, and now you have a chance to make this right before things get worse. She hung up on me. Minutes later, my mother called. Abigail Catherine Thompson, she began, using my full name as she always did when she was furious. I have never been so disappointed in you. Your sister is absolutely devastated. How could you send someone to her workplace? Do you have any idea what you've done to this family? I didn't choose where they served her, Mom. And yes, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm finally standing up for myself after a lifetime of being taken advantage of. That is the most selfish thing I've ever heard. Family helps family, Abigail. Your sister made a mistake, but to go to these lengths over money, to involve lawyers and police. What will people think? I don't care what people think anymore. I care about what's right. My father's call was even worse. He didn't yell like Mom and Amanda. Instead, his voice was cold and cutting. You've always been jealous of your sister, he said. But I never thought you'd stoop this low to hurt her. If you go through with this, you're no longer welcome in this family. His words hurt more than I wanted to admit, but I held firm. I'm sorry you feel that way, Dad. I love you, but I won't let anyone steal from me, not even family. The situation escalated when other relatives began taking sides. My Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, called to lecture me about forgiveness and family loyalty. My Uncle James, my father's brother, surprised me by offering his support. Your parents have always let Amanda get away with murder, he said gruffly. About time someone held her accountable. The legal pressure, combined with the dealership's cooperation, finally forced Amanda's hand. 2 weeks after I filed the police report, she was required to return to the dealership to sign paperwork returning the car. The transaction had to be supervised by a police officer due to the fraud investigation. I wasn't required to be there, but Michael advised that my presence might help ensure everything proceeded as agreed. So I stood silently in the dealership's office as Amanda, looking nothing like the confident woman who had flaunted her new car in my face, sullenly signed the documents. She glanced up at me once, her eyes red from crying. Are you happy now? She asked. You've ruined everything. This was your choice, Amanda, I replied quietly. You could have asked for a loan. You could have been honest. Instead, you stole from me. It wasn't stealing, she insisted, her voice breaking. It was just a misunderstanding. I was going to pay you back eventually. With what money? I asked. You've never kept a job for more than a year. You've never saved more than $1,000 at once. How are you planning to pay back $50,000? She had no answer for that. As Amanda left with our parents, who had come to pick her up, my mother couldn't resist one final dig. I hope you're satisfied, Abigail. Your sister has nothing now because of you. I watched them drive away in my father's Cadillac, Amanda in the back seat like a child being picked up from school. My mother's words echoed in my mind. Your sister has nothing now because of you. No, I thought. Amanda has nothing because of her own choices, and she still has more than most. Parents who would drop everything to rescue her, who would defend her even when she was clearly wrong, who would give her a place to live and support her financially without question. What did I have? A restored bank account, yes, but also a family that might never speak to me again. That thought weighed heavily as I drove home alone. Had I made the right choice? Would the rupture in my family ever heal? My phone rang as I pulled into my apartment complex. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hesitantly, I answered. Abigail, it's Grandma Margaret's friend Elaine. I hope you don't mind me calling. Your grandmother gave me your number years ago in case of emergency. Is everything okay? I asked, immediately concerned. Yes, dear. But I heard from the family grapevine what's been happening. Margaret would have been proud of you, you know. She dealt with similar issues with her own sister back in the day. I sat in my car stunned. She did? Oh, yes. Her sister once took their father's savings bonds that were meant to be split between them. Margaret was the only one who stood up to her. The family was furious with her at the time, but years later, they all admitted she'd been right. Tears welled in my eyes. I didn't know that. She never liked to talk about it. But she told me once that standing up to her sister was the hardest and best thing she ever did. It changed their whole relationship for the better eventually. That conversation was a lifeline. During the difficult weeks that followed, my parents maintained their freeze-out, refusing to speak to me through texts or calls. Extended family gatherings became awkward affairs, with people choosing sides and speaking in whispers when I entered a room. Amanda, faced with the bank's evidence and the threat of criminal prosecution, eventually signed a settlement agreement to repay the additional costs I'd incurred, legal fees, lost interest, and the emotional distress compensation Michael had insisted on including. She would make payments over 5 years, secured by a formal judgment that would affect her credit if she defaulted. The hardest moment came when I received a text from my mother. We're having Thanksgiving dinner at 3 p.m. Amanda will be there. Please don't come if you're still insisting on this ridiculous lawsuit. We want a peaceful holiday. It was the first major family holiday I would miss in my entire life. Despite everything, the exclusion stung deeply. Diana invited me to her family's Thanksgiving instead. My mom already loves you from all my stories, she insisted. And my brother is dying to meet the badass who stood up to her embezzling sister. I accepted, grateful but still nursing the wound of being ousted from my own family table. 6 months passed. Spring arrived, bringing with it not just new flowers, but new beginnings in my life as well. I stood in the kitchen of my new home. Not the original house I'd planned to buy, but one I'd found and fallen in love with during my renewed house hunt. It was smaller than my original dream home, a 2-bedroom bungalow with a tiny backyard, but it was mine. The settlement with a bank had restored my full savings, and with Amanda's restitution payment, I'd had enough for the down payment and closing costs. As I unpacked dishes into my cabinets, I reflected on how much had changed since that devastating day when I discovered my savings gone. The most surprising change had been in Amanda. The consequence of her actions, nearly facing criminal charges, losing her job when the story got around her office, having to move back with our parents, had forced her to confront her behavior in ways nothing else ever had. 2 months after returning the car, she had called me, asking if we could meet. I'd suggested a public place, still not entirely trusting her motives. We sat in a coffee shop, an uncomfortable silence stretching between us until she finally spoke. I've been taking these financial management classes, she said, staring into her coffee. It's part of the settlement agreement, but they're actually helping. I never realized how messed up my thinking was about money. I'd stayed silent, waiting for her to continue. The counselor says I've been using spending as a way to feel better about myself and that I've been enabled by mom and dad my whole life. She looked up at me then, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time. And that I've been unfair to you. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was more self-awareness than I'd ever heard from her. I'm working at a call center now, she continued. It's not glamorous, but it's steady. I've got a roommate, and I'm sticking to a budget for the first time ever. By our second meeting, she had finally offered a genuine apology. I'm sorry, Abby. What I did was wrong. Really wrong. I can't undo it, but I'm trying to be better. Our relationship was far from healed, but it was a start. My parents had taken longer to come around. They'd maintained their united front of disappointment and anger until my grandmother's friend Elaine intervened. She'd invited them to lunch without telling them I would be there, and mediated a difficult but necessary conversation. You've always had two different standards for your daughters, she told them bluntly. Margaret saw it. I saw it. Everyone saw it. Abigail has spent her life being punished for being responsible, while Amanda was rewarded for being reckless. My mother had started to object, but Elaine cut her off. Eleanor, remember when Robert's father gave each of you money to start your lives? How would you have felt if Robert's sister had taken your share and his parents had told you to just earn it again? That question had struck a chord. For perhaps the first time, my mother had really considered how their actions looked from my perspective. Progress with my parents was slow and uneven. We began with short, awkward phone calls that gradually became more comfortable. By the time I closed on my house, we had reached a tentative truce. They hadn't helped me move in. That would have been too much, too soon. But my mother had sent a houseplant with a card that read simply, "Congratulations. Love, Mom and Dad." Family therapy had been my suggestion, and to my surprise, they had agreed. Our first session had been tense, with my father still resistant to the idea that they had favored Amanda. But by the end of the session, the skilled therapist had helped us all see patterns none of us had fully acknowledged before. Families often unconsciously assign roles to children, Dr. Mercer explained. Abigail became the responsible one, which made it easy to take her for granted. Amanda became the one who needs help, which made it easy to excuse her behavior. These insights didn't instantly heal decades of hurt, but they gave us a language to talk about what had happened and why. On this sunny Saturday in May, as I arranged my new kitchen, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find my parents standing awkwardly on my front porch, a casserole dish in my mother's hands. "We brought lunch," she said tentatively. "If that's okay." I hesitated only briefly before stepping back to let them in. I was just unpacking the kitchen. "It's a mess. We can help," my father offered, his voice gruff but sincere. As we worked together unpacking boxes, our conversation was careful but not cold. They admired the house, asked about my new neighborhood, and even mentioned that Amanda had received a small promotion at her job. "She's still going to those financial classes," my mother said. "She says they're changing how she thinks about everything." "That's good," I replied, meaning it. After lunch, as we sat on folding chairs in my half-furnished living room, my father cleared his throat. "Abby, I owe you an apology. What we did, what we've been doing all these years, it wasn't right." The words I'd never expected to hear from him hung in the air between us. "We were wrong," my mother added quietly. "We should have supported you just as much as Amanda. I'm sorry it took something this extreme for us to see that." Their apology wasn't perfect, and it didn't erase the hurt of a lifetime, but it was a beginning. A real one. 3 weeks later, I hosted my first dinner party in my new home. Diana and Sarah came, of course. So did Amanda, bringing a bottle of wine she'd actually saved up to buy. My parents arrived with dessert. Grandmother Margaret's friend, Elaine, joined us too, bringing stories about my grandmother that made us all laugh and cry. As I looked around my table at this patchwork of relationships, some old, some new, some healing, some transformed, I realized that I had gained something far more valuable than the money I'd recovered. I had gained self-respect and established boundaries that, perhaps for the first time, my family was learning to honor. The journey had been painful, but necessary. Like Grandmother Margaret before me, standing up for myself had been both the hardest and best thing I'd ever done. Later that evening, after everyone had left, I sat on my new porch swing and looked up at the stars. I thought about how far I'd come, not just in recovering my savings, but in recovering my voice and my worth. If you're watching this and struggling with family members who take advantage of your kindness or generosity, know that establishing boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary. Sometimes the hardest people to stand up to are the ones we love the most. But healthy relationships require mutual respect. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members? What helped you find the courage to do it? Share your stories in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Remember, standing up for yourself doesn't mean you don't love your family. Sometimes, it's the most loving thing you can do for everyone involved, including yourself. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you strength on your own journey.